My name is Virginia Murray from Watson, Farley and Williams in Athens, and it's my great honour to continue, to a certain extent, the previous panel on tourism, but also to look very much at the real estate sector in general. In many ways, real estate investment can be said to constitute the bedrock of any economy's emergence from the crisis, and particularly in Greece, as it's effectively the type of investment which is the broadest based and has the largest number of people who are directly involved in the market. Now, Athens, along with Moscow and Istanbul, remain at the bottom of the prospects table for real estate investment in Europe in the latest report published by PwC and the Urban Land Institute last month. However, the writers note that, and they quote one of the people questioned, that there is a sense of recovery and that Greece has done some things right in terms of the bitter pill it had to swallow, which has allowed its 2018 prospects to head beyond fair and up to good. A commentator noted that investing in Greece doesn't feel so crazy, and we have to view this as a good thing. Now, of course, real investment requires security of title, stability of outcome, and supportive social and access infrastructure. It's my great honour today to have on my panel and continue the rather strange exercise of lawyers asking businessmen questions rather than the other way around. For lions of the real estate sector, I have Mr. Tziallas, who is the General Secretary of Tourist Strategy and Policy. I have George Chryssikos of Grivalia, Odisseas Athanassiou of Lamda Development, and Karytinos of Pangaea. Now, we want to make this a very much interactive session today, so we will be welcoming questions from the floor pretty well from the beginning. So if you can start putting your hands up, but I'll start with some questions myself. Perhaps if I can start from the far end, Mr. Karytinos. What do you see as the key dynamics in the Greek real estate sector at the moment?
Thank you. Hello, everybody. About the dynamics of the market. The Greek market is in a transition phase. Actually, the whole country is in transition phase. Currently, we have the first signs of recovery in the economy and in the real estate market as well. But the dynamics are a little peculiar in the sense that they are affecting only small pockets of the real estate market and across sectors, which means that it's not, you see, a spread out phenomenon for the time being. Current dynamics for these pockets are very positive. They drive the yields down, they drive the rents up, and on top of that, because there are just a few properties that have very good fundamental characteristics, we have a lot of investors going after these properties, so competition is very high. All these factors, all these dynamics lead to higher prices, but just for specific properties having very good real estate fundamentals. The challenge is to have this for the whole economy, and for the whole market, not just for these very specific pockets of the market. And I think that this is the challenging thing for the next year, because, as you know, real estate is always correlated with the greater economy, and normally is not a leading indicator, but is following the growth of the economy, which means that if we want to see this growth for the whole real estate market, we've got to see first the economy, the Greek economy, to grow, which is exactly the challenge I'm talking about, is what we expect to happen within the next years. So
Thank you.
that's for, just for start.
If I carry on this way then, if I can ask Ms. Athanassiou, one of the key indicators, I suspect, is probably the retail market and the commercial sector. How do you see the market in retail properties and retail malls, which of course is something that your company invests in? Can you speak to that a little?
I'll try to. It's in general fact to predict 3 to 5 years down the road. It has become even more difficult to predict nowadays with the effect of online consumption in the retail sector. And definitely when you talk in an optimistic way and you are in the United States and you talk to Americans, not only investors, but consumers also, about the future of retail, everybody's going to say online is the future of retail and all physical facilities are going to shut down. So I'm going to differentiate a bit, not because I can predict the future, especially 3 to 5 years down the road, but because consumption in Greece is very fragmented. For the ones who have visited Greece, and from what I can see here, there are several who have, I would say that we have many neighborhoods where people are doing their shopping. There is some concentration that has happened over the last 3 to 5 years. The crisis was a factor that accelerated this concentration because as smaller stores were shutting down, some of this consumption was lost. Some of the remaining consumption was coming to big venues. Part of this was the malls that Lamda Development owns. For the future, I can say that I think this is going to continue. As online consumption is going to come and become stronger in Greece, some of the physical consumption is going to be lost forever to the online realm. Some of it is going to come to the big venues that are going to remain as long as these venues include more and more entertainment, more and more experience, more and more leisure, and this is what we're trying to. As for the current environment, and not to talk only about the future, currently we see consumption having been flattened. At least the drop has stopped. I'm talking about the general market. And regarding our malls, we're doing well, and the reason is what I told you before. We focus on the consumer, and concentration is something that would happen in Greece and has happened over the last 5 years.
Thank you. One of the issues facing the market generally, and particularly in relation to commercial properties, is presumably the aging stock. There's been very little construction in the last few years in commercial and retail properties. George Chryssikos, I don't know if you could speak to how that problem can be addressed, and particularly in relation to the work that perhaps Grivalia has been doing in relation to upgrading some of its properties and the emphasis on upgrading and energy efficiency projects.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Virginia. It is true that the stock, the current supply of modern office space, especially in Greece, is very small, very limited. And this is driven by the fact that during the recession, many of the landlords didn't afford to keep maintaining their assets. And this is why this sector now performs very well, because whoever owns a brand new and a high standard office space has demand for it. And this is why this specific sector enjoys high occupancy levels, more than 95%. The demand now, especially from the multinational tenants and the multinational organization, is driven towards better standards, higher standards, and is driven towards buildings that are friendly to the environment, they consume less power, and this demand is going to be increasing in the future. And this is why at Grivalia we have started positioning towards capturing this future demand, not only by deploying capital into new buildings that have this characteristic, but also through upgrading part of our portfolio. A very successful example is a big renovation that we did in our office building in Marousi, where we spent a lot of money to reposition the asset, to convert it into an energy efficient, a very nice green building. We call it the Green Plaza now. And we spent a lot of money with the hypothesis that the demand is going to be there for it when it's being ready. Actually, as we speak, this building has been almost fully leased at rental levels that are significantly higher from the remaining market in Marousi, mainly from multinational corporations looking for this better environment. In the specific asset, we have managed to reduce the operational expenses for our tenants, and therefore the premium that they are paying for us as a rent is been offsetting with their actual operational expenses. We have been deploying this program in several buildings in our portfolio. We have already upgraded 5. We have another 3 in the pipeline. And through that example and through that exercise, we also thought that, getting into earlier stage of a new development can also be awarded for us. And this is how we got involved in a big regeneration project in Piraeus, in the former Papastratos buildings. As we speak, we are now finalizing the construction of a brand new office building. It's going to be delivered in 4 months. And apparently the demand was there. As we speak, it has been fully pre-leased to a big multinational organization.
Thank you. Mr. Tziallas, you'll be able to give us some further details about some of the actions that the Ministry is taking to encourage investment in tourism real estate, but also in the infrastructure that tourism needs, that the Minister set out in broader lines. And if you could give us a bit more detail, that would be...
Thank you, Virginia. Just allow me to make a small connection between the previous panel, which talked already about the potential of the tourism development and the numbers and the figures and all the potential for investing in Greece. What we do and what the Minister said before, and it's talking about those big numbers, high numbers, extraordinary numbers, which are a result of the very hard work that we've been doing for the last couple of years, is that we are trying to extend the season, which means actually to create new thematic forms and develop new thematic forms of tourism, which as a consequence, it has to extend the season, have new thematic products to attract more tourists. Those thematic products, of course, and thematic forms of tourism, actually building on our history, on our civilization, on our culture, on our gastronomy, on all the advantages and all the authentic experience that we offer in Greece. Actually, in turn, it generates more potential environment, very positive environment for investments. What we've done in this is actually we tried to, through opening the new markets, as we said before, is actually to attract more tourists and different thematic groups of tourists to go and feed and fill in the specific thematic products that we create. In this sense, actually, we create the business environment for new investments. It might be in the form of new hotels or the renovation or upgrade of existing hotels that they are in Greece, abandoned hotels, or others that they are ready for renovation, and giving the incentives for investors to come and buy land to create specific tourism infrastructure like complex tourism resorts, which is a combination of hotels, villas, and some thematic products around them, some thematic infrastructure. We have already had more than 15 of such kind of resorts in Greece that are licensed already and are being promoted. And we have also a very, very, very great interest in upgrading from the tourism, the private sector, in upgrading the establishments from 3 to 4 star hotels and from 4 to 5 star hotels, which actually means we upgrade the quality of services, of the provision of tourism services. And also what we do is that we upgrade the infrastructure and we attract more infrastructure to accommodate the needs, because the needs of the, if we start from this point that we have now, in the next coming years, we have the numbers will be increasing, so it means that we cannot accommodate such tourists. We need to increase the accommodation. We need to increase the office, the space for tourism events to accommodate all these tourists. So we extend the tourist season. We accommodate the tourists throughout the years by offering thematic products, and at the same time we give incentives to the private sector, because without the private sector This is the power to have investments in tourism. We as a ministry, what we do is actually we provide some easy legislation, procedures for simplify the procedures, simplify the licensing, but it's the private sector that would come and build on all this new environment, and new positive environment that we have in Greece.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions from the floor yet? So, gentleman over there.
Yes, you talked about investing in property. I understand in the past that there was a problem with land records. Has that been resolved?
Land rights. Well,
Land rights.
land records.
Okay, this is you know that there has been the big project we had actually funded by the European Union about the land records, and actually we have new mapping of the forest land in Greece, and this goes on, and now we have a more or less a pretty stable and pretty well descriptive database with all the property, all the properties. This is something that has been done for the last 10 years or so, and now we have a pretty much in a very good status that we have the land records, and we have also digitalized, and this is even we have do the mapping of the protected areas. We have all the areas that are environmentally sensitive. Now it's the work that has been done is to register and survey all the forest areas in Greece. It will take some time, of course, because most of the part in Greece is a mountainous area, but we are in a very good position to have exactly what is publicly owned, what is privately owned, which are the owners of the private land, and we can move on.
There's a question from a gentleman there. Your microphone's just come.
To what extent is China participating and investing in real estate?
It's a very good question, and generally the Golden Visa Program, I don't know if any of the panel members want to talk about the Golden Visa Program and how it's affected residential sales?
Actually, I think it's still very early to assess this success. Of course, I think that numbers are getting much better. It's going to take some time until we have the success of other countries, European countries, with the Chinese. For the moment, we are far away from Portugal, for example, that is a country that can compare to Greece. But the pace, I think, is quite high, and more and more, a lot of Chinese are coming to the country to buy Golden Visa. And another issue with that is that we've got to organize this this whole project, which is now, I could say, a little chaotic, and gives the opportunity to a lot of intermediaries to make a lot of money. So we need to have, you see, a more formal approach to that with you see the money that we give to the agents and all that stuff. Now, as I said, it's like Far West, and I think that there's a lot to be done in the future if we want to be quite successful in terms both to have something, you see, something to sell to these people, and on the other way, which is the right way to do these sales. These are the two problems that we have to work with in Greece.
Yes. So, the report out today, I noticed, was 42% of people purchasing properties above 250,000 in order to gain a residence visa in Greece through the Golden Visa Program are Chinese. in an answer to the gentleman's question. So Chinese investors are very significant in relation to that particular investment program. But yes, I think Mr. Karytinos is very right that there's a business of reliable sales of higher-end retail residential properties that needs to be established. There's a question over there. You have a microphone next to you. Yes.
Thank you. From 1993 to 2008, the Greek real estate index increased 225%, and we know where that led. How are you going to ensure that we're not going to have another asset bubble created and rent extractive activities that are going to actually sink the local businesses? If you increase, if you ask higher rents because foreign investors can pay you more, isn't that going to create a competitive disadvantage for local consumers and corporations? And how are you going to resolve that? Thank you.
Do you want to take that?
Maybe George.
Yeah, I can try to take this question. I mean, yes, you might argue that in 2008 the Greek real estate was a bubble that was driven by excessive leverage into the market and quite aggressive yields compared to the rest of Europe. And that bubble crashed because of, the 7 years of recession. The companies couldn't afford to pay this huge amount of rents. But currently we are in a completely different phase. We're talking about rents across every commercial asset that there are close to 50% discount compared to other European cities. We're talking about yields that there are 300 to 400 bips higher than the prevailing yields in other European cities. So before started questioning whether in Greece there is a real estate bubble, you have to check what's going on in the rest of the world. I think that if we look forward and if things go back to normal in the Greek economy, it's quite logical to have a further contraction in the yields. I mean, you cannot have GGBs trading in Greece around 5% now, in the rest of Europe below 2%, and having real estate yields in the range of 8%. So definitely a yield contraction is a play that is imminent, and I don't think it's going to yield in excessive pricing. In terms of the rents, I was talking and I was referring to higher rents compared to the rest of the market, but for a different type of a product that has higher quality, better specification, and a product that consumes less. So the tenants are paying less for the electricity bill, for the utilities bills. They're paying less for maintaining the property because all the equipment are brand new. So you're not comparing apples with apples. Whoever wants to look into this type of product, no matter whether it is multinational, an international company, or a Greek company, or a smaller Greek company, if they do the math, it can work out very well for them as well. So we're not talking about rents excessive levels. I mean, 17 euros for a super nice building in the perfect location that has like the best environmental standards. It's rather cheap compared to what is happening in the rest of the world.
Can I ask the panel members how they see electronic auctions of repossessed properties affecting the market? I think this
actually depends, first of all, on which kind of properties. If we're talking about commercial properties or residential properties. Both, because it's two totally different markets with totally different dynamics. So we've got to make this distinction because these markets have nothing to do with. First of all, you see the big political problem is with residential properties, not with commercial properties. And no one had, has protested against an auction that has to do with a commercial property. But there are a lot of problems with the residential properties. So residential market is a problematic market, structurally problematic because the stock is huge. So I don't see where the demand will come from for a market like that. So I don't understand why one should worry about the auctions, even if we had auctions, because there's no demand.
There's no buyers.
So yeah, no investor will come and invest in Greek residential market. It does not make any sense. So, and we've seen that you see some of the properties that have been auctioned, there was no demand at all for good properties, of course, not for very small apartments, which is even more difficult to find someone interested in. About the commercial properties, I think this is the way that the MPLs should, you see, should prove if they have a chance to get values that will accommodate the banks. So I think this is the big bet. If the provisions taken by the bank are enough compared to the values that they're going to get from the auctions or from the sales in general. We don't know is the answer. Nobody knows. It's something that will be proven in the future, and this is the big bet not only for the banking system, but for the country as well. And of course for the real estate sector, because it is affected by this process. To be honest, the problem with Greece, and this has to do with what the gentleman said before, and now we are trying to, you see, to find a way to stabilize the market and find a way to start growing again. So we are far from a problem with bubbles. It could be a blessing to have that kind of problem now. It's something that has nothing to do with the current status of the market. Now the market is struggling to survive in some sectors, and some sectors will never recover. So, as I said, the problem with the market, the Greek real estate market, is that it is extremely fragmented. And what George said is part of that fragmentation, that we have pockets in the market that they are doing very well, but very limited product. So this is the real problem. We've got to grow the whole economy in order to have, you see, conditions that will help the real estate as a whole. Now we're talking about very few properties doing well. This is the real problem. So it's far away from having a bubble again, maybe in many years from now. But this is not, you see, a likelihood for the foreseeable future.
Thank you. Now, we heard from the speakers this morning that large projects and the success of large projects are going to be one of the key aspects that raise confidence in the Greek economy and confidence needed for foreign investment. And there are few projects larger than the Hellenic project. So if Odysseas could give us an indication of how it's going, what's left still to be done before you go ahead with construction.
Okay. Every time I'm trying to do a prediction about when Hellenic is going to start, I've been proven wrong.
Yes.
But now you can do the prediction with myself present, so you can.
Well, perhaps Mr. Tziallas could tell us.
Safer prediction.
Not only you, I'm looking straight into one of the significant ministers of the government, Kundura. So, and I'm always in a political environment. But anyway, just for 30 seconds, bridging the previous questions with this one. We're talking about bubbles and investors and everything. Everything in life is supply and demand. Why sometimes prices go up and create bubbles, not only in Greece, but everywhere. Why do we have the crash, the global crash? Because apparently investor psychology became too positive. And usually when things go up, people see them going even higher. And this human psychology, the investor psychology, in Greece we have the opposite now, because it's obvious that when you have a mall being 100% occupied for the last 5 years, when you have record sales, or when you have an office building being occupied for the last 5 years and you have credible tenants, then you are wondering, why didn't I see it that buying it at 8 or 9% yield was an opportunity. But this, we're not going to change history. This has happened all over history. So it's even riskier to say when Hellenico is going to start, and I don't like to look backwards. Certainly there are things that happen that are representative of some issues we have in Greece, but let's look forward. I'm cautiously optimistic that this time we are moving forward. We are seeing definitely a spirit of cooperation from the applicable ministries. I think that this week and next week we have some critical meetings. Actually, I don't think, I know that we have some critical meetings. And I think that before Christmas time, the master plan, because this is what we're talking about, the master plan is everything we have envisioned to develop, right? So it's going to go to the High Court of Greece. If this happens, we'll definitely be able to talk about one significant step being accomplished. The next one is for the High Court to give the green light to the master plan. We have read and we know that the Greek state has said that they expect the master plan to be approved by March. Without giving you too much complicated information, I would say that let's put our projection in what's going to happen with these two steps. One thing, and I finish here, not to bore you, I would say that this is one of the exception projects in which everybody can benefit, meaning the most significant industry of Greece, tourism, is going to benefit. Our consultants have said that at least we should expect 1 million more tourists to come because of this project. The image of the country, which is significant to all of us, because many of you have Greek origin, is going to change completely. Imagine how you're going to feel, how investors are going to feel when they know that everybody, many big companies from all around the world want to invest in Greece. Apart from this, we're talking about a project that is going to bring to the surface all historical and archaeological, hopefully, findings we're going to find there. Environmentally wise, we're going to have a park that is going to be competitive size-wise to Central Park here. So from the guys to my left and to my right, they're not competitors, they're going to benefit. They may want to invest in office sector. We're talking about €500 million to be invested in the office sector. We're talking about hotels worth €250 million. We're talking about huge infrastructure. Many embassies from all over the world are coming to meet us, and they are interested in their companies, in companies from their countries, to be involved in Hellenicon, in waste management, in telecommunication infrastructure, in utilities management, you name it. I could talk hours and hours and hours, but the thing is, it's a national project, so I hope that this time I'm not going to be wrong, and I think 2018 is going to be the year that Hellenicon finally is going to start.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can say some positive words about that, because we are working together now. The government is towards this direction. The presidential decree, hopefully, it will go to the Supreme Court, the master plan, and then according to what Mr. Athanassiou said, hopefully, because this is the biggest project in Europe now, probably worldwide, and it's for me, I can tell it as because I'm a planner, an urban planner myself. This will change the character of the city, the character of the area. It will be combining environment. It will be combining tourism, 1 million tourists and more from that, residential areas, office areas, recreation, athletics, cultural protection and everything. It's going to be a paradigm for the whole area, for the whole Europe. Hopefully, we will contribute on that. And it's actually, it's good history that we are very happy that we are being in position, in the political position to go together with this project.
I've been in meetings with the Secretary of Tourism, and I can attest that he is doing everything he can to, I hope we all can.
From little things on the map.
Yeah. Good news. Well, let's hope when we meet again this time next year that, yes, the bulldozers will already be on site. Okay, well, that's our time up. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for my panel members.